Hey guys, this is Illusion Podfic, and today we're going to be reading Who's Old Now by Leah Bizwavi. This is Chapter 12. As said before, for anything short of the active, literal end of the world, do not contact me. Billy paused. Was that too rude? Nah. This was just making sure he really emphasized the point. The point being, please have someone watch over Fawcett while I'm unavailable. Thank you for your understanding. I will contact you again in a week. Sincerely, Captain Marvel. Billy quickly read over his email again. Going out of contact for a week, can someone please deal with Fawcett? If it's being directly attacked, don't even look in my direction unless the world is actively ending, blah blah blah. Yeah, that sounded about right. Billy? Danny called nervously from the other room. Billy hit send without even looking. I'm coming, he called, pattering over quickly. Danny was sitting on the living room's pull-out couch, surrounded by a nest of blankets and pillows. His skin was pale and his eyes shot with green. Leaning heavily into Jazz's side, he wordlessly made a grabbing motion, and Billy wormed his way between Sam and Tucker to slide into Danny's arms. Danny pulled him close, folding his arms around Billy in a protective embrace. Billy sighed and snuggled closer. Better? He asked. Better, Danny confirmed, voice muffled from where his face was buried in Jazz's shoulder. At least he wasn't nonverbal yet. That was a good sign. Billy knew it wouldn't last long. It never did around Danny's death day. Last year, the first time Billy had been around for it, Danny had explained it to him like this. Around a ghost's death day, more specifically the week surrounding it, their instincts and obsession would slowly be dialed up to 11. However, they'd also be bedridden with the pain of their death, causing them to be practically powerless. Danny had a protection obsession. He also had a highly agonizing death, causing him to pretty much be paralyzed a quarter of the way in. Not being able to move, combined with the protection obsession, was volatile. At best. Danny said on his first death day he had broken into Sam and Tucker's houses, kidnapped them, and crashed into Jazz's room, barring the door and refusing to let anyone enter or leave, or at least trying to, because he had hit his limit soon after and was reduced to a shaking, agonized mess. After that, yeah, they learned how to adapt, and it pretty much came to hole up in one room with a pile of snacks and water bottles, an adjoining bathroom, and don't leave for the entire week. Danny had wrung his hands when he told Billy, I'm going to be really clingy and physically affectionate, but it's also a lot of pain. I understand if you're not comfortable staying with me during that. Will it hurt you if I'm away? Billy had asked. Danny hadn't done him the disservice of lying. Yes, but I'm the adult here. It's not your job to deal with my issues. I'll have Sam, Tucker, and Jazz with me, so you can crash at their place for the week instead of being here, Danny had said. Billy had hit his nerves and resolutely shoved himself into Danny's side. A hero doesn't leave people in pain when they can help, he had said. Danny had hugged Billy in return and whispered, You're a good kid. It had been unnerving and a little uncomfortable. He was constantly around people the entire time, unable to leave for longer than 5 minutes without Danny dissolving into heart-wrenching sobs. But Billy had stuck out the cuddles and the whimpers of pain, the feeling of being an intruder in such an intimate scene, and spent time with his new guardian. In the end, Billy felt like their relationship came out stronger for it. Danny was there for Billy when he needed it, and it had been his turn to reciprocate. And now it was a year later, and Billy was in a blanket nest with his dad, aunts, and uncle. And he knew he belonged. Danny's body suddenly racked with a violent tremble, and he whimpered in pain. Jazz shushed him quietly, running his fingers through Danny's hair. Right here, little brother. We're all right here. No, he slurred. Where's Jason? On his way, Danny, Sam reassured, glancing at her phone screen. Any minute now. There was a knock on the door, and Billy moved to go get it, but didn't get more than a foot before Danny was yanking him back in his lap. I guess that means I'll get the door, Tucker snickered. Billy flipped him off, and he escalated into full-blown goughs. Sam simply rolled his eyes and got off the bed with a quick pat to Danny's shoulder. She yanked over the door, grabbed Jason by his shirt, and tugged him in. Jason yelped and frantically tried not to drop the pile of takeout containers in his arms. Hey, watch it, he exclaimed. No, Sam replied with a smirk. Jason rolled his eyes, but then immediately snapped his gaze over when Danny whined. Danny? Danny simply made a grabbing motion and looked pitilessly at Jason. Jason shoved the takeout containers into Sam's arms and marched over to Danny. Danny shoved his head into Jason's side, latching onto his shirt with ferocity. Wow, Jason said, sounding concerned. You really weren't kidding. I wouldn't joke about this. Danny mumbled incoherently. I know, Jason said, awkwardly smoothing a hand through Danny's hair. Jess smiled with a tired understanding. He gets cuddly like this. It's okay if you need a break every once in a while. Psh, I've gotten worse from Dick's octopus hugs, Jason dismissed. It ain't a crowbar or an exploding warehouse. I'll live. Billy smiled. It felt good to see how much better Jason had gotten about his death and the time he'd known the family. It Probably had a lot to do with having someone who understood, plus the sight of actually getting enough ectoplasm to not have his core constantly cannibalizing his sanity. Who knew pit rage was a side effect of ectoplasm deprivation? Well, not Jason, and it took Danny dragging Jason halfway through their acquaintanceship to Frostbite to actually get an answer and a solution. Your death day was last month, right? How'd it go? Jazz asked. They were just happy I wanted to spend time around them. They're all equally clingy around them, so they didn't think it was weird. Jason's face grew up in a grimace. I'm not looking forward to when I get enough ectoplasm in my system to actually feel it. Rather than, Jason waved his hand idly. The extreme emotional instability that bordered on insanity and manifested in extremely violent ways? Tucker said dryly, briefly looking up from his current favorite PDA. Yeah, that. Jason shrugged. Mind telling me what's in these? Sam asked, hefting the precariously stacked containers that had been shoved at her. Yes, Jason said, smirking. Kosher tofurkey, burger on rye, no cheese, and extra lettuce. A 4-meat cheeseburger, extra bacon, a classic cheeseburger, no onions, chicken Caesar salad, dressing on the side, chicken fingers with barbecue sauce on the side, chicken nuggets, kid meal, and enough french fries to turn someone's blood into gravy. Tucker rattled off easily. Jason blinked. I was going to say dinner, but yeah, that. You have our orders memorized? Billy asked, because, he heard that enough times to know whose was whose. Jason blushed and scowled. I'm a bat. Of course I know everything. But how did you know that? Jason accused Tucker. Tucker simply held up his PDA in a toast. Subtle you are not, my friend. Jason rolled his eyes. I know a non-answer when I hear one, but yeah, fine. Jason flopped down in front of Danny. I've officially put myself on blackout mission status. No one's going to try to talk to me or try to look for me for the next week. Is that something you can do? Billy blinked. I just told the Justice League that I'd be unavailable except for emergencies. Jason snorted. No, you did the correct thing. If you said what I said, you'd freak everyone the fuck out. Jason grinned sharply. Blackout missions generally mean undercover infiltration, where someone you know trying to contact you could get your cover blown, with a major side of killed. And Captain Marvel doesn't have a single unsettled bone in his body. Billy nodded in understanding. They only tried to put me on a civilian recon mission once. I showed up in a trench coat and fedora over my suit because, well, it doesn't come off. They sent me home. Jason dissolved into frankly unwarranted laughter. It wasn't that funny. Sam rolled his eyes and started passing around takeout containers. The food was, somehow, still hot. Danny grabbed his container of chicken fingers and started shoving them into his mouth like he was a black hole. Breathe, little brother, Jazz said, patting Danny lightly on the back. Danny only mildly slowed down. I'm hungry, Danny mumbled through a mouthful of food. Jazz rolled her eyes. I can see that. Truth or dare? Billy tapped his chin. Truth. What's the weirdest thing you had to eat on the streets? Jason asked. Well, after I became Captain Marvel, but before I met Danny, sometimes magic creatures would try to give me stuff. As thanks after I saved them. Some I declined, some is like somewhere in the Rock of Eternity, but they've also given me food too, Billy said. One time this pack of werewolves gave me jerky, which tasted really awesome. I asked them what it was, and they told me it was leprechaun jerky. I was too scared to ask if they meant by leprechauns or made of leprechauns. I'm still too scared to ask. What did it taste like? It was magically delicious. Billy! Why? Why would you do this to me? It's not the end of the world, Tucker, Sam scoffed. Tucker waved his handful of Uno cards wildly. Maybe not for you it isn't. I fucking hate this game. Tucker continued drawing until he finally picked the one he needed. Fucking finally, Tucker moaned, placing down his red verse. Jazz maintained her usual poker face she had in all games, whether or not there are any stakes. She maintained direct eye contact with Tucker as she put down her red reverse as well, sending the turn back to Tucker. I fucking hate this family, Tucker cried out. Breathe, Danny. You still need to breathe. You're still alive, Jazz casualed in a quiet whisper. Danny, beyond the reaches of coherency or speech, was holding his breath while a scream started in his chest. It was alarming, it was worrying, it was heartbreaking, and there was nothing Billy could do about it except burrow into Danny's embrace and tap a beat into Danny's arm, hoping that it would somehow reach him through the haze of pain. Danny's chest moved from the forcefully still tremble he had had before, but the air in his lungs only came out in a pained wheeze, like he'd been stabbed. He gulped in a lungful of air, and the next exhale came out a pained cry. Billy winced and blinked tears out of his eyes. This was the worst. Well, yeah, it was the literal worst it could get. But really, the entire thing sucked. He just wanted Danny to stop hurting. but there wasn't anything he could do about it, not any further than he already was, or the rest of the family either. Danny was tucked into Jazz's chest and Billy to his. Sam and Tucker were sitting on either side of Danny like they always did. This year, the newest addition was sitting in front of Billy, hands on Danny's legs, facing them. Danny was entirely surrounded by people who loved him, but he was still in so much pain. Gods, Billy hated this, but he could never hate Danny. Never. "You need to eat something, Danny," Sam said, pleading. Danny simply whined and held his face in Jazz's shoulder. "I know, man, I know," Jason soothed, running his fingers through Danny's hair. "But you gotta have something. If solids aren't good, I can heat up some soup." Danny huffed and grabbed Jason, pulling him into a hug. Jason sighed and patted his back. Yeah, love you too. God, you're worse than Dick when he's sick." "What am I, chopped asparagus?" Sam grumbled, but obligingly moved towards the kitchen. The great thing about an open floor plan was that Danny could see everyone pretty much no matter where they went, so at least Sam going to the kitchen wasn't distressing. "Hey, Jason?" "Yeah?" Jason looked up from where he was zipping up his jacket. They'd made it to the end of the week once again. Sam, Tucker, and Jazz had left late the evening before, since they had work the next morning. Jason had stayed one more night. Danny had said that he could leave too, but Jason had declined. Billy thought it was because Jason, on some level, had enjoyed their sleepover. The good parts, at least. The entire week, not a single one of them had nightmares. Besides Danny, and with some of their occupations, nightmares were a bit of a given. Billy thought that people slept better when they felt safe, and what was safer than being with the people you love? "Thanks for coming over, man. You didn't have to," Danny said, leaning against the wall. "What? No, of course I did. You're my friend. You're my friend and I care for you. Of course I'll be there for you." Jason said that so simply, like it was a matter of fact. Billy hugged Danny's waist and he sighed and leaned heavily on the wall. "Wish my parents had said something like that," Danny said morosely. Jason paused. "You never really talked about them," Jason said cautiously. Danny shrugged limply. "I'm fine telling you. It only hurts some days. When I came out to them as a phantom, they told me to leave and never come back." "Oh." "Yeah, I was prepared for a lot worse. They said if they ever saw me again, they'd treat me exactly like they treated the rest of my kind." "Shit, man." Billy tightened his grip around Danny's waist. Danny shrugged again. "It doesn't bother me as much as it used to, but it means a lot to me that you're here." Jason strode forward and wrapped his arms around Danny's shoulders. They were about the same height, but Jason was bulkier in his shoulders, which made it easier for him to engulf Danny in his embrace. "Yeah, I'm here. And I'll keep coming back. Whenever you need me, I'll drop whatever just to be with you. Because whatever else is family good for?" Danny buried his face in Jason's shoulder and hugged back. Billy leaned his head on Danny's hip and smiled. "Yeah, family. A family could be a half-dead adult, a psychiatrist to give therapy to her own family, a plant witch, a reincarnation of an ancient pharaoh, the champion of magic, and a crime lord. And it could be great. Billy wouldn't have it any other way." Alright guys, and that is the end of chapter 12 of Who's Old Now by Lyra Biswavi. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you next chapter.